California legal team, they're pushing for Tennessee officials to drop the charges against activist Pamela Moses, who goes by P.Moses. Now, Moses was granted a new trial last month, and she was sentenced to 6 years in prison after a jury found the activist knowingly falsified information on a voting document. Now, Moses' lawyers say with the new evidence entered into court records, a jury would almost certainly find Moses innocent. We're now joined by P.Moses from North Memphis, as well as her legal counsel, Rodney S. Diggs and James A. Bryant, both out of Los Angeles. Glad to have you here. And so, first and foremost, lay out the legal strategy, Rodney and James, that you have for P.Moses to get these prosecutors to back off trying to retry her.
Sure. Thank you, Roland. At the moment, what we're doing is we are asking and actually demanding that the DA dismiss all charges against Pamela Moses. Should the DA not want to do that and try to move forward with the new trial, which Ms. Moses should not sit through again, then we're asking that a special prosecution take place to review the evidence and go from there. But at this moment, the first step is to have the charges against Ms. Moses dismissed.
This obviously has been very difficult for you, P.Moses, because so walk folks through. People, they may have read about the story, may have heard us do it before. So walk us through what happened here that got us to this point.
Well, in 2019, I was arrested at the Chicago O'Hare Airport. Didn't know what was going on. I was in customs, and they told me that I was a fugitive of justice. And I was somewhat confused because, you know, I've been in trouble before, but I had never been listed as a fugitive, and they couldn't tell me why. I just had to go with them, and it just felt really weird. And when the Chicago police informed me that I had charges out of Shelby County, I told them, well, I just flew out of there. If, you know, 2 weeks prior or a week prior, if I was a fugitive, I don't think that the airport would have allowed me to do that. But they took me and they put me in the Cook County Jail. I think I was right across the street from R. Kelly and other, you know, notorious inmates that were being housed in this historical jail. And I was kept there for a number of days. And then finally, I was taken to court, and I appeared before a Black judge who somewhat wanted to know if I wanted to waive extradition or not. And he said if I didn't, that they would get a governor's warrant to have me transported. And I was just somewhat confused because getting off of a flight like that, you know, and being stopped is just within itself is traumatic, but to then be thrown in jail and not know what it's about or what it's for, it really did something to me. But, you know, God got me through that situation. And after I was held in jail, they picked me up and they, in a white van, a contracted employees for Arkansas, picked me up in a white van and they rode me around 18 different states for 4 days, picking up different inmates, dropping them off. And so I got a very good look of how the states do human trafficking, but they call it fugitives. And, you know, some of the people may have been fugitives, but I wasn't charged with an offense of violence. In fact, I didn't even know what I had been charged with. I just knew I had charges out of Shelby County. And when I finally got back, you know, after riding around all these states, picking up inmates, I was able to then, you know, post bond after a couple of days of being in the Shelby County Jail East. And it was, you know, told to me that I had all these illegal charges for surrounding voting. And, you know, I was just grateful to get out, and I remained out for some time. And the lawyer that I had retained originally, he had got in some type of trouble, and so he couldn't represent me. And the judge appointed me this new lawyer because I spent all my money on bail and the previous lawyer. So he appointed me this lawyer who, at the time, I was okay with because I thought he would, could easily get this taken care of. But I later found out that, he wasn't working for my best interest. He was just trying to basically get it over with the best way he could, which was to make me plead guilty to something that I did not do. And so because I rejected their pleas, the judge put me on the bench and told me that if I didn't take a plea, I would be facing 42 years in prison. And I said, okay, well, I'm definitely, going to have to go to trial on this if I'm facing that much. And then they, did a series of offers trying to get me to take a plea. But when I would ask the lawyer as well as the prosecutor, because I had several conversations with the assistant district attorney, and I would say, okay, what did I do? And they never could tell me. They just wanted me to take this plea. And I was like, I can't do that because the same district attorney that was handling this matter had also handled the previous matter, which was filed way before this indictment, which was to get a full restoration, to get like my gun rights, certificate of employability, because as a felon, it's very difficult to get a job. But if you get a certificate of employability, you're able to then work. So you have to go through a legal process to do that, which I did do. And it was during that filing that triggered all this. Oh, she's trying to become normal again. She wants her rights back. She wants to run for public office. She wants to do this. Oh, we can't let that happen. And they just then decided to April, that petition was filed, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, the 6 months later, this indictment came out. And so it was just very difficult even understanding what I had did. But once we finally got to the gist of it, 12 of the 14 counts were dismissed by the district attorney's office because they were basically duplicate charges.
They hit you with 14 counts?
14 counts. It was 14 counts originally on the indictment. And that was why they thought I should plead guilty. But, I know you're talking about this case, but I can't talk about this case without talking about how we got to here. The case that put me in this situation, it had 10 counts, and I did plead guilty to those charges, not because I was innocent, but like most people, I plea bargained to get the situation over with because there was not necessarily guilt on my part, but it was like fighting a losing battle, trying to discredit an attorney and a judge who had made some sort of allegations. Well, at the time, I thought the judge had made them, and I later found out that the judge, whose name was Phyllis Gardner, she did not formally make these allegations against me. She gave a statement, but she didn't give them in a criminal forum. She gave them in a quasi-civil forum. She was trying to basically stop me from talking about her on Facebook. And she was granted that order of protection, but I appealed it. And after I appealed it later, she did, withdraw the order of protection voluntarily. She dismissed it, but that was after I had already pled guilty to all this other stuff. But the judge didn't ever call the police. She never called the sheriff and said, hey, I want to press charges against Ms. Moses. She basically had an ethics complaint against her. And the ethics attorney, Virginia Bozeman, she contacted the district attorney and made all these allegations against me. And so because I did, say stuff about her on Facebook, I didn't threaten her or stalk her and all the things that they said, but I did say that they were racist and, that people shouldn't vote for her and that they should bring civil rights charges against her because I did do that. I went ahead and pled guilty to this because at the time I didn't have any money. I was being held on a $500,000 bond, and that was the only way I could get out. And so I pled guilty to those charges. I served my time. I tried to re-enter into society like anyone else who had served their time. The only thing, that was left were the misdemeanor charges, which were separate from that, which have nothing to do with voting. But I went through the process. I went to the judge, asked him to say my time was over. He said it wasn't over, but mind you, the judge that I went to say that my time was over was not the original sentencing judge. He was a special judge that had been brought in after the Tennessee Supreme Court appointed him, after every judge, I think maybe 20 judges or somewhere, every judge in the 30th District of Tennessee refused to hear my case. And the judge who sentenced me, he refused to do anything else with the case because I think he realized that he had made a mistake. So he just didn't want anything else to do with the case. So the judge that they appointed, Judge Acree, a very nice judge out of Dyersburg, he was basing his decision on the transcripts and the judgment sheets, which were unclear. So, the defendant is never right in Memphis. The defendant is always wrong. They're never going to side with the defendant. So he basically said, you're still on probation, but he never clarified what type of probation that I was on. But the Department of Correction, who is in charge of calculation, and I believe you had Dr. Anya Wu, my other attorney, who was representing me zealously in the sentence hearing. He tried to explain that to this new judge, that Ms. Moses went to the right place. This is the keeper of the records as far as the tabulation, and they said that she was not on probation anymore. In fact, they signed off on my certificate for voter restoration, and that's how this came about. But one thing that was left out that Dr. Anyawu didn't know, and I didn't know either, and my new attorneys just found out, and it was a zealous reporter at The Guardian who located the document. The Department of Corrections had conducted their own internal investigation in regards to this matter 2 or 3 days after it allegedly happened, and they determined that there was no crime or any, thing that I had did wrong. They said, in fact, I had sat there for an hour waiting, for them to verify the information in which I was seeking clarification on. And they described the supervisor to be negligent. And I don't agree with that, but the Department of Corrections basically did not say I did anything wrong, because they have the ability to arrest people right then and there if some type of violation has occurred, and they did not do that. But somehow the district attorney indicted me for 14.
So I am absolutely confused, Rodney and James. This is a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
Over trying to vote.
Exactly. Trying to vote.
This reminds me of the Crystal case out of Texas, where these white Republicans like, yeah, we gonna make an example out of you, black woman. That's what this sounds like.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And I think what's important, Roland, it's always a pleasure to see you. What's important for Ms. Moses is this. She did everything right. She took all the proper steps. She went into court in July. She requested that the court give her clarity. The court actually didn't end up giving her clarity. They just said she's still on probation. They didn't decide whether it was misdemeanor probation or felony probation. And that's a very important thing, because if you are under active probation in the state of Memphis for a felony, you can't vote. However, it was not clear whether it was a misdemeanor or whether it was a felony that she was on probation for. And what they said during this court transcript that we finally got our hands on was this. Both the judge and the prosecutor agreed that it was the Department of Corrections who actually makes the proper calculation for how long one is on probation. And because of that, and because there was no clarity in this hearing, just 2 months later, Ms. Moses does the right thing. She goes down to the Department of Corrections to get clarity from this supervisor who spent over an hour researching and trying to decide what happened and whether or not she was still on felony probation. And at the end of the day, he specifically stamped on this particular document, you have the ability to have your rights restored. And this was after going through computers, going through the data system, making phone calls to his higher ups, and they made that conclusion. And with this one document, Ms. Moses, who only wanted her rights as an American back, she went down and she filed that document. And guess what? That document that she didn't even prepare, that she didn't stamp, Shelby County convicted her of submitting a fraudulent document, knowingly submitting a fraudulent document. And that was absolutely the travesty here. She had nothing to do with that. And that's the only charge they can hold her with. And Roland, 6 years. 6 years. You have people who have stormed the Capitol, beaten police, and they can't even get more than a couple weeks in jail. And they were going to take Ms. Moses and make her sit in jail for 6 years for something that she relied on based upon not only the judge, the prosecutor, but also the Department of Corrections. And that's what's wrong. And that's what we will fight.
Matt or Michael, any questions for the two attorneys and P.Moses?
I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Matt Manning first. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, my question for you all is this. Is there not a basis for a dismissal for this case on the standpoint of prosecutorial misconduct? Because what frustrates me beyond the gross miscarriage of justice here is the fact that the state had in its possession mitigating evidence and actually evidence that shows Ms. Moses' innocence, right? So she was prosecuted without all the evidence to show her innocence, and the state is the one that has the sole duty to prove the case against her. So it seems to me there should be a basis for that, but I don't practice in Tennessee and I don't know the law there. Is that something that y'all have considered? And if it's not something that's applicable, why is that the case?
Well, the district attorney at this point has said that they weren't aware that this document existed. They have been very clear on that. They said that it was somehow in the personnel file of this particular individual, and the Department of Corrections had not delivered that particular document to them. And so even though it is part of what we call a Brady violation, this, regardless of whether or not the district attorney was aware of it, all evidence that is within the state's file, they have a duty to turn those documents over. And again, that's why a new motion, or the motion for new trial, was granted on that particular situation. However, we haven't really, because of the stance of the district attorney saying that they've tried to make it clear, we didn't know about this document. We had no clue. It's not on us. It's the Department of Corrections. We're trying to get to the bottom of that. But again, you absolutely better believe that we are looking into this Brady violation, because nonetheless, you have a duty regardless to turn over any evidence that could exonerate an individual or would be supportive of a potential not guilty verdict. So, yes, I mean, we're looking into that. And those are things that we're discussing amongst our team.
And if I may, Roland, very quickly, it's common for prosecutors to contact witnesses in a situation like this and say, provide all of the documents that you have. So the idea that the prosecutors are still going forward with a case where they have demonstrable evidence proving Ms. Moses' guilt, or rather innocence, pardon me, is a travesty of justice. And it just makes no sense unless it's purely a political thing where Wyrick's office does not want to have egg on its face for choosing not to go forward on this case.
No, you're absolutely correct. We're demanding that Amy Wyrick drop the charges and believe that, this is retaliation for Ms. Moses speaking out numerous times against Ms. Wyrick. But, on this instance, her office now has all the evidence to exonerate Ms. Moses, and we're demanding that the charges be dropped immediately.
Michael.
All right. Well, first of all, Ms. Moses, you are a true warrior, so I want to thank you for your perseverance. But I was just trying to find out from the attorneys, I've been following this case somewhat, the documentation that caused Judge Mark Ward to order a new trial. Can you give us a little insight what that documentation is? And then also, are you all looking at, I know she suffered from a severe case of COVID-19 while in jail as well. Are you all looking at a civil lawsuit once you get charges exonerated?
So at the moment, what we're doing is we're just looking at all the legal options that Ms. Moses has at the moment. But what we're focused on first is actually having the cases dismissed. And so the next hearing date is April the 25th. We'll be out there. And at that time, hopefully the district attorney's office does the right thing, does not move forward with the new trial and dismisses. And at that point, we would gather with the legal team out here, Mr. Bryant and myself and others, and determine if we're going to move forward with any civil charges.
And to answer your question with regard to the document that you're referring to, that was an internal, I wouldn't even call it an internal document. It was an investigation conducted by the Department of Corrections shortly, and Ms. Moses talked about it briefly. It was shortly after Ms. Moses had been given this document saying that she had the right to restore her rights. And so that document, whether it was a number of communications as well as a report, those all evidenced what exactly happened. When Ms. Moses was convicted, they convicted her on knowingly, submitting this document, given the fact that she was aware she was on felony probation, and that just wasn't accurate. The individual who testified, that supervisor, he also made, as far as I'm concerned, misrepresentations on the stand during trial where he said Ms. Moses forced him to do X, Y, and Z. However, that document specifically stated otherwise. And that is why the judge looked at this and said, hey, you know what? I just don't believe that Ms. Moses was given a fair chance to present all the evidence available to her for a jury to determine what her thought process was when she submitted that document. And I will tell you, and Ms. Moses will most certainly tell you, she had no clue. She thought she was doing the right thing. And it really just, you guys, it's political persecution. I'm sorry. It disgusts me. It absolutely disgusts me.
Well, no, go ahead and finish your point.
Oh, no, I was just saying that Ms. Moses deserves every right available to her. And really, she's a wonderful woman, and she fights so hard for all the injustices that are happening in Tennessee and specifically Memphis. And for that, and for speaking up for Black people, this is what happened to her. And that's why we're here to fight for her.
Well, I will say this here, P.Moses, the reality is people who may not realize, and we've been covering the story, Tennessee has frankly been at war with activists. We saw how they tried to criminalize individuals who were trying to register people to vote. And same thing when it came to people protesting as well. So it's no shock that we will see the actions taken against you. And like I said, we've been covering the story of Crystal Mason, a sister who has been just put through pure hell. And they still are going after her because, and they testified, even in her case, her own probation officer, that she was not told that she could not register to vote. They didn't care. They still pursued it, sent her back to federal prison, and now trying to put her in state prison. So it's unbelievable, these actions being taken. We certainly appreciate all three of you joining us to lay out all the details of this case. Hate that you have to go through this, but this is the reality that Black people have had to face in this country in trying to keep and get the right to vote since 1619.
And I just want to say this, regardless of, the situation, no one is promised tomorrow. So I don't really worry about people going after me. Look at what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. No one would have thought that last year, but people need to understand this is an election year. Mm-hmm. And the same people who are going up after me, they're up for re-election. So the people that, I see you wear the Alpha Phi Alpha shirt, your fraternity brothers, and just like my attorney's fraternity brothers who do have the right to vote, they need to stand in unison and send a message to Memphis and the rest of America that if you want to go after people when we have murder all over the city, we're going to go after your position and find someone to replace you.
I agree. Oh, trust me. I have spoken extensively to the Alphas and to all members of the Divine Nine about using our collective power to speak out and show folks and show our colors and flex our political muscle. And so that's why when people say, oh, I'm not going to vote, it means nothing. Oh, trust me. Those individuals out there, they know the power of Black votes, which is why they're trying to do all they can to stop us from voting. We appreciate it. Thank you so very much. We'll be following your case to the end.
All right, thank you very much for having us.
All right, thank you very much. All right, folks. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?